Good evening, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby is back in the studio.
Yes.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I missed you so much. I'm so happy to see you.
Yep.
You have no idea what I've gone through.
Chalk Knox and the non-emotional water boy.
Gabe, what did you do to him?
Oh, you have no idea.
Well,
it's
it
him
was-
and Keith. Outrageous. Everybody loved it. I just want an adult in the room.
This year, our national conference is in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville.
Actually, that's where I just was, you guys. I
Oh, no
flew into
way.
Knoxville. I did. Drove right by and waved at our event center.
Wow.
October 6th through the 8th, we're going to be in Knoxville. The theme of this year's conference is lies, propaganda, storytelling, and the serrated edge.
Swing.
There you go. That was a little late. Satan is the father of lies, and the mother of those lies is a government that has rejected God. We have especially been lied to these last 2 years, and the COVID panic has been one of the central mechanisms that our government has used to lie to us and grab more power. Because Christians have not been reading their Bibles, we are susceptible to these lies and weak in our ability to fight them. God has given us his word to fight Satan and his lies, and we need to recover all of God's word, its serrated edge and all. Mark your calendars for October 6th through the 8th as we fight, laugh, and feast with fellowship, beer, and psalms, our amazing lineup of speakers like Jared Longshore and Ben Merkel and Doug Wilson and Knox Shannon. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Going to be doing something. I'll be giving a talk. We'll be doing a live show. George Gilder also will be there. Bunch of
Fantastic.
Anyways, you want to meet new friends and hang out with our vendors. Early bird tickets are still available until
June 30th.
Oh,
Early
is that
bird.
for real?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, but they're going to be gone soon because the end of June's coming up very soon. So sign up at flfnetwork.com/shop. Knoxville 2022.
Hey, do you know that we missed Beer and Song Wednesday because you weren't here? I just wondering.
We forgot. We forgot about Beer and Psalm Wednesday.
You know you can sing psalms and have beer without the pastor there.
It was.
We figured
it was a moral failing on our part. It really.
We're sorry.
It's on us. You guys know that the Pope is resigning, right?
Yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah. I know.
So what do you guys want to run?
I thought about it, but then I was like, I don't believe in the Pope.
Yeah. But you
maybe John MacArthur can run. Evangelical Pope.
Yeah. He's an independent
if we have
pope.
One of those.
Yeah. So since the Democrats believe they can self-identify as anything, Biden is self-identifying the economy as not a problem.
I promise. Even more likely than ever.
Not the majority of them aren't saying that. Come on, don't make things up, okay? Now you sound like a Republican politician. I'm joking. That was a joke. But all kidding aside, no, I don't think it is. My dear mother used to have an expression, if anything lousy, something good will happen if you look hard enough for it. Mm-hmm. We have a chance here to make a fundamental turn toward renewable energy, electric vehicles, and not just electric vehicles, but across the board.
Fundamental turn. So if you didn't hear this, the reporter starts off asking the question, is our economy going into a recession? Right. And he says no. And then he later on says, but we have an opportunity to fundamentally change our economy.
Right.
And I think, if we need to be paying attention to what is it, Ron Emanuel or Hillary Clinton, whoever was quoted, given the quote, what do you call it? Is Ron Emanuel, I think, who said, don't ever waste a crisis. Or it might have been Hillary Clinton, who knows? It's one of the Democrats,
but they get it.
They get it. Don't ever waste a crisis. Well, that's what Biden quotes his mother saying. Basically, we shouldn't waste a crisis. We should always find the good silver lining in all this. And the Biden economy, they want to revolutionize the economy. They really do. And there's a report out. I thought this was. I worked for economic modeling. I worked for an economic firm for 12 years. And so I was very involved in these kind of economic reports. Well, there's a report that came out, National Bureau of Economic Research just came out with a report kind of looking at all the programs that funded kind of the COVID crisis, the shutdown. So there's 4 programs, the CARES Act. Yeah, bailouts. The Family First Coronavirus Response Act, the RRA Act, and the ARPA Act, okay? There were basically 4 major packages that funded the shutdown. Mm-hmm. And this National Bureau of Economic Research did a report, and they just looked at how did this money go towards keeping government jobs afloat? So
government jobs.
Government jobs. This wasn't talking. They didn't talk about private civilian jobs that they shut down. They just wanted to highlight and look at just government jobs. And they found in this report that $855,000, basically it costs about $855,000 per government job to preserve that government job through the shutdown.
Wait, what?
$855,000 to keep a government job during the shutdown. And they marked it, they defined it as one annual job. So someone couldn't lose their job in 3 months. They just kick them out of the bucket. It is an annual job that was maintained with this money.
Government job kept annually almost $1 million.
Yeah, almost $1 million.
So do they produce $2 million?
No. Because the government jobs don't produce money in the economy.
So how does that work exactly? So if you have a job that doesn't produce more than what you're paying to have it, doesn't that mean that job probably shouldn't exist?
Knox, don't ask difficult questions like this. That's for the experts to take care of. You don't worry about that.
Okay.
Don't ask questions.
$2,400 per federal taxpayer. It's what it costs all of us individually.
Yeah. Which added up to $855,000 per job.
Individual.
So it cost basically almost $1 million to sustain one annual job during the downturn.
I don't
even know how the math works out in that. Right?
Well, how is it that they actually reported this and they told us that this is what it costs, as if we're supposed to say, "Hey, good job, way to go." Yeah. So a part of me, when I read this, there's a whole presentation that they laid out. So 70 pages? I'm actually going to go through the 72
page report.
But they wrote this stuff as if we are supposed, we're ignorant. We shouldn't read this and be like, I'm sorry, who is the one making these decisions?
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? So part of the responsibility is on us, because you can look at it and say, hold on a second, this is okay? I want to talk to who's in charge? Yeah. How do we make that decision?
But this is what it looks like when the government wants to revolutionize the economy. Now, Biden's going toward this green climate economy. He wants us to all have electric vehicles, and then he'll figure out how to tax that more. But this is what happens when the government gets involved in things they should not be involved in.
Look, some sort of change in the economy to me is inescapable. I don't want to consider a revolution, but I think there is some sort of reformation, something that's happening in the economy, right? But I think the reformation side of it, the change of it, is coming way more local. So as everything just starts to fall apart and crash, what you're going to start to see is people become far more local in how they think about their food. Look, gas prices are going to keep you local. Right? True. The politics. So then when you start building, you start doing things local, your politics becomes even local. So I think there is something drastically that's happening that the left sees as an opportunity to change the story. If we let them change that story, we're going to be in a place where they are in control of what the future looks like.
Right. And this is why we want to reclaim local economies. We want to get away from this massive federal government regulated economy and reclaim local economies. The Supreme Court, this next 2 weeks, pay attention to this. Next 2 weeks, actually, I think the session could go into early July, but the Supreme Court has a number of hotbed cases that they still haven't decided on. I think up to 17 cases.
Yeah.
But we wanted to highlight for you a very important case that are coming up. Obviously, everyone knows about the Dobbs-Jackson abortion case.
Yeah.
Okay, that still hasn't come out yet. The leak came out back in February, but the final decision still hasn't come out yet. That's happening this week. Second case that's going to be happening this week is the gun rights.
They're not,
Second Amendment.
Well, before you go on,
yeah.
the Dobbs versus Jackson case is they're kind of playing this kind of close to the chest, a little closer to the chest now, of course, but they're still saying, hey, just the leak opinion doesn't reflect all the justices' thoughts in final yet. So it'd be interesting to see, and they're expecting that even by tomorrow. So we're expecting tomorrow something to come out with that, but it'd be interesting to see if this holds up. I'm thinking with the threats on their life and the lack of protection for the Supreme Court justices and the people petitioning, I wonder if it's going to have any effect on how they rule at the end of the day.
That's why, one of the things we've been praying for is just that the judges
have some back,
wouldn't concede, wouldn't allow these threats to their lives and their livelihoods to affect the final outcome of the decision. I think we should be praying for that.
Yeah. And so you said the second one.
Next one, Second Amendment rights case. This one's interesting. This is New York State Rifle and Pistol Association against versus Bruin, and this one's about the state law. There's a 1911 New York law requiring applicants to demonstrate proper cause and a good moral character to obtain a concealed weapon. So during the 2 hours of oral argument in November, the court's conservative majority, was receptive to gun owners' claims that the state's public safety law, that 1911 law, impinged on their rights.
Well,
And I agree with them.
proper cause.
If
I'm an
New York-
American citizen, that's my proper cause.
If New York is defining what a moral,
Yeah,
right.
Good and moral character is their
Yeah.
line. Quote. So like good and moral character.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
are you talking about Cuomo?
How about this?
Okay, so Cuomo can't own a gun?
I don't kill babies in the womb. Does that
Yeah.
does that count for good? 'Cause if that's the case, you shouldn't issue me anything.
According to New York, that's immoral.
Exactly.
That's exactly.
Good. They don't even know what moral is. For
So,
goodness sake.
but they could use, if they keep that if they maintain that definition in the 1911 law, then New York could say pro-lifers couldn't own a gun,
Right.
Because you guys are immoral.
Right. People who voted for Trump.
Yeah. You're against bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
yes, they take away your defense
right.
abilities.
You're immoral.
So the other, there's actually two cases that have to do with basically church, Christian, some sort of faith-based case. The first case is Carson versus Macon.
Macon, yep.
And this is going to consider whether Maine can exclude religious schools from its program that pays private school tuition for students who live in rural areas, basically areas where public schools just can't reach or everything.
You mean to tell me that private citizens can come up with some form of education that goes beyond the government's reach? Yeah, okay, sure.
And so the Christian schools are saying, hey, we can serve these people in these rural areas, and but the state of Maine is saying, well, we aren't going to give public dollars to religious schools. Right. And so part of the argument is that basically they can't use taxpayer-funded money to go to dogmatic institutions.
Yeah.
Oh, like public schools?
Like public schools.
Yeah.
I know. The first thing I go to is like public schools.
Yeah.
But do you want government money though?
No, that's the thing to be careful about. That's the thing that we got to be careful about. I think
I want to educate those kids.
I think we need to be shrewd, and there might be some plays to run in dismantling the monopoly of government education. But nevertheless, Christians need to be very leery of taking money from the state. Now, turns out that money that the state's got, they stole it from us.
Right.
And if there's a way to get it back and fund private and Christian schools, we should do that. But we got to be careful because that money is hooks.
That's right.
But if it's the play to be able to break the federal or the state government's monopoly on what religious funding looks like, so that you can redefine everything, I'm with that.
Yeah, but you just got to be very, very
But
careful.
I wouldn't want to take the money. I would want it to win the case and not take the money.
Right.
Okay, last case before we have to go here. It's kind of in the same vein here. You remember the football coach that was praying in the middle of the field, high school football coach in the state of Washington? Yeah. Well, that case is actually going to be decided on in the next couple of weeks. If he can privately, after a football game, kneel in the middle of the field all by himself and pray. That's what.
I think he had.
That's what's at stake.
It wasn't
Literally
just by himself.
He got fired for this, right?
Yeah, or suspended until goes through the system.
I hope he takes them.
But that's literally what this case is over, because he wasn't requiring any of his football players to go out there. He'd go out after a game in the middle of the field, put a knee down, and pray. And some students would join him, but nothing was compelled. It was all voluntary.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't allowed to do that.
I think George Washington is like rolling in his grave.
It's pretty insane to walk through these.
It's funny, you know.
I mean, the presidents used to call for public prayer to the Christian God.
Away with them!
Everybody needs to be praying to God. Ask Jesus for mercy on our land. Next Tuesday.
Yeah,
and nobody batted an eye.
Yeah, they haven't forgotten about that history.
And our mayor, our governor, and our president need to go back and do this.
Yeah.
I hope he wins. More cross politics coming up next. Dale Partridge. Yeah, what is he talking about?
Yeah,
Christianity and masculinity.
Masculinity, yes, sir.
Next on Cross Politics.
Where Dave and I plan this year's company holidays.
Let's go through the list.
Easter.
Too religious.
St. Patrick's Day.
Too white.
Mother's Day.
Way too cisgendered.
All of your usual holidays have been canceled this year.
But we still have Karl Marx's birthday.
Need a real reason to party? Find a new job at redballoon.work.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.
Welcome back to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. It's good to be back. No, really, it's good.
Seriously.
It's good to be back. I don't know what happened while I was gone, but Knox
Crazy stuff.
was scarred. Gabe, what did you do?
I tried.
He was being Gabe.
Do we need to have some counseling?
I will tell you, Toby went to Knoxville area this last week for a family funeral or memorial service.
Yep.
And then he came back and preached a pretty good sermon on Sunday.
Really?
I'm just saying.
So time to go look it up?
This is the kind of pastors we have in our community.
Where do you find it at?
Well, I think...
we don't have a podcast feed yet, do we?
King's Cross. I mean, I think it's still going through the Christchurch feed.
Okay.
But I think King's Cross is
Get
trying
lost
to
in
get
the Christchurch YouTube feed.
Hey, this segment is brought to you by Dime Payments. It's a Christian-owned processing payment business. Every business needs a payment process system. Go to dimepayments.com/FLF. Sign your business up. Working with them supports your friends at Cross Politic. Yeah. And they won't cancel you like Stripe canceled President Trump. They won't cancel you like MailChimp canceled the Babylon Bee. Check them out. At least have a phone call. Tell them that Cross Politics sent you. Go to dimepayments.com/FLF.
Message.
We are grateful to have our friend Dale Partridge on the line with us now. Dale is the president of relearn.org and Reformation Seminary. Dale conducted his graduate studies at Western Seminary, Master's Seminary, and Grace Bible Theological Seminary. He's the author of several Christian books, the host of the Real Christianity podcast, the teaching pastor at Reformation Fellowship in Sedona, Arizona. Dale, thanks for coming on Cross Politic.
Brother man, I am excited to be here.
So, also, Dale has like a bazillion followers on Instagram.
Yes.
We Dale and I, we were like hanging out and all friends.
Instagram follows him.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to follow my friend Dale. And I said, what in the world?
Yeah, he's been working.
He's like,
he's been working.
He has been. And he just came out with this new book called The Manliness of Christ, confronting the issue of effeminacy in Christianity or effeminate Christianity. And Dale, what are you talking about?
Did Beth Moore endorse this book?
She did. Yeah, she was the one behind this whole thing. No, man, guys,
she was like, I went home and I realized. No.
Yeah, this book was actually a paper that I wrote as kind of my final thesis work for a Christology class for Professor Owen Strachan over at Grace Bible Theological Seminary. And I finished the paper, it was a 30-page paper, and I was encouraged to say, hey, you should publish this thing. And so I thought, all right, I'll publish it and just put it into a little book. And I wrote an extra chapter or two, added some words to it, beefed it up a little bit. I mean, it's still a small book. I mean, if you're watching this on video, but I mean, it's only, it could fit in the palm of your hand. It's about 80 pages. And put the book up on social media, and man, we've sold thousands of copies of it. And I think it's just because we hit the reality is that we are obviously struggling. We have a man problem in the church, and we have obviously a feminism problem in the church. And so we want to just confront that issue. Again, the title is The Manliness of Christ. The subtitle is How the Masculinity of Jesus Eradicates Effeminate Christianity.
So, Dale, can you give us some examples? What are you talking about when you talk about effeminate Christianity?
We don't even realize how effeminate we are because it's like a fish doesn't know it's wet. Mm-hmm. The church has been designed about being effeminate. Even the men's programs are designed after women's programs. I mean, the reality is that you have, these words like share your heart or let's do life together. Or
I'm getting sick. Stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the
all Promise Keepers language.
Yes, the type of music that we sing, and the sway your hips to Jesus kind of movement, and this whole idea of we love this kind of. I talk about Dane Ortland's book, Gentle and Lowly, in this book, kind of contrasting it to this book. Now, Dane I'm not going to say anything about Dane. He wrote that book is actually, I would say, a theologically accurate depiction of Jesus. The problem is it's a one-sided view of Jesus. And so we see the gentle and lowly Jesus. That's the problem is that that's the only type of Jesus that we've seen in the last several decades, and especially in the last 5 years. And so the reality is we need the other side of Jesus, the masculine, the raw, the bold, the rough side of Jesus, which is absolutely there, the resolved, fearless, intense version of Christ. So I went through the whole scriptures and I was going, hey, let's look at Christ from a masculine perspective, pulled that out and put this attribute list together. And you realize that Christ is the most masculine man who ever lived. And if you don't like masculinity, you will definitely hate Jesus because he was incredibly masculine. And so we just, I think, need to be reminded what it means to be a masculine man. I don't want my boys' names are Honor and Valor. And I don't want them to just look at me as an example of masculinity. I want them to be able to look at Christ.
That's right.
The problem is there's just not many examples that really break out what the masculinity of Christ really is. And so that was the attempt in this book, is just to really pull all that out of the scriptures, put it together so you can consume it in an hour and 10-minute read and really be reminded that Jesus was a man and not just a, androgynous, effeminate individual.
Your boys' names Honor and Valor. I thought they would have been Walker and Texas Ranger, but
or John Wayne.
Can you give us like some examples or principles of what you're talking about Jesus's masculinity as he exhibited it, in culture?
Yeah. So first thing is, if I talk about the good news, I need to talk about the bad news first. The bad news is that you have what we call the delicate deity in the book, and this idea that we have this, again, Roman Catholic version of Jesus with, he's wearing blush and his eyebrows are tweezed. And, that's the kind of version of Christ that we see, again, the low and the lowly lamb. The other side that I really wanted to contrast, which is in chapter 3, it's the maleness of Christ. I talked about, there's so many people throughout church history, liberal theologians, that want to talk about that Jesus didn't even have a gender, that he was really just this, again, androgynous individual that was really kind of, had both genders within him, kind of thing. And that's a theological conversation that's actually happening at higher criticism. Wow. And so that's weird. And then we went to the masculinity of Christ, chapter 4. And I broke it down into really a couple categories. I wrote the boldness of Jesus, the fearlessness of Jesus, the sacrificial love of Jesus, the resolve of Jesus. Now, the big thing that I want to talk about is the resolve of Jesus. I read John Stott's book, The Cross of Christ, which is just recommended reading for any Christian because it's just rugged. And you just get a chance to look at Christ, especially his resolve. And so the reality is that Jesus was fully aware of the intensity that was coming for him at the cross. Not just like the physical reality, but the spiritual reality, the forsaking of himself from the Father. I mean, the actual weight of the entire world's sin upon his shoulders. The obviously the physical reality of getting just shred. And so the Bible says that Jesus was actually eager to get to Jerusalem, and he's up in front of the men as they're walking toward Jerusalem. And you just get this view of Jesus out in front. And you think about the reality of what he's going to, what he was going toward. Just utter torture, utter spiritual desolation, and he's out in front. And beyond this, there's obviously the intense statements of Jesus that he calls people, with real intensity. He goes, brood of vipers, or he calls people liars to their face, or he whitewashed tombs. This language that we don't want to use today as Christians because we think that it's too offensive or whatever it may be. But Jesus was absolutely leveraging that type of language in the right circumstances. And so how do you break that out? When is it applicable? When is it not applicable? When do you do the truth in love? When do you just do the truth? And so finding a balance between all those things is really what I tried to pull out of the book. But yeah, it's absolutely, I think it's enlightening because a lot of men realize, wow, I can follow this Jesus. Because what's happened in the church is that when you build the church for women, you lose the men. And when you build the church for men, you gain the women. And so the women will follow the men, but the men will not follow the women. And so the reality is that when you focus on a masculine Jesus, you get a masculine church. Focus on a feminine Jesus, you get an effeminate church. And the reason we're losing every battle in culture from the battle of life to sexuality and gender, pornography, divorce, whatever it may be, is because we are not willing to have a masculine perspective on Christ. We're not having an example to follow as men. We have this weird, distorted, perverted version of Jesus, this one-sided version of Jesus, and we don't have any way to actually look as men. Who should we be modeling? So what we do is we turn to pastors. We look to men. We start modeling our pastors. We start modeling those men that we respect. We love Doug Wilson. We start modeling Doug Wilson. But the reality is we need to be modeling Christ. And so we need examples of Christ, not just godly men who are exemplifying Christ in their life. And so there's a big, deep chasm that's going on here that I think that this book just happened to touch, of really putting words to how people have felt and trying to figure out a solution to get back to a masculine biblical Christianity.
Hey, Del, do you think the way that since we're so effeminate right now, do you even think the way that we proclaim the gospel itself is effeminate?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about it as being something you need to accept, and it's this like gentle conversation instead of it being a command. Instead of it's being submit to Christ, submit to the lordship of Christ. Christ is already Lord. You don't need to accept him. He's already Lord, whether you admit it or not. And so we definitely approach it because, again, evangelism through the 90s, through the early 2000s, the kind of with everybody's heads bowed and eyes closed, raise your hand for Jesus so you don't feel embarrassed. That whole movement of seeker-sensitive Christianity, again, was just catering to the emotion instead of just the commanding reality that there is a king.
That's
and
right.
You must submit to his rule and reign. And that just is very rare today. But that is exactly how we see Paul proclaiming Christ. That's exactly how we see the early church fathers proclaiming Christ. And it's not what we see today. So we definitely have a gap between what we're reading in our Bibles and then what our reality is in modern Christianity. And so trying to close that gap is this book is a part of that.
Dale, can you got some time to stay around with us for about another 20 minutes, maybe?
Yes, totally.
Okay, I want to push the edge and we'll say, let's keep you around because we're going to talk.
You can be direct with us, man. You can tell us like,
no, yes, no. All right, Dale, give everybody your website.
Well, and he just real quick, they're launching a new ministry.
That's what we're going to talk about on backstage.
Let everybody know the website of that. You just launched a new ministry on sharing the gospel. You want to give us that website and what's going on there?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. I mean, if you guys will let me talk for a couple more minutes.
You got 30 seconds,
like
45 seconds.
Okay, 45 seconds. All right. So we launched a new ministry called mailthegospel.org. So many Christians want to share the gospel, but they don't. And so we made a way for anybody to share the gospel with anyone, anywhere. And they're beautifully designed tracts, theologically accurate, bold gospel tracts that you can mail to anybody. You can also include a Bible. Again, just check that out at mailthegospel.org. And if you want to pick up the manliness of Christ, that's relearn.org/man.
And the podcast.
Real Christianity, man. I'm on 200 episodes in. And man, we're loving that show, man. It's been such a blessing. Got, 40,000 weekly listeners there.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. All right. So, Dale, you stay right there. And if you are a Fight, Laugh, Feast Club member, you can come along with us, too. If you're not, I don't know what to tell you. Sign up, become a club member so you can hang out with us
at
the backstage. So, if you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
Armored Republic exists to honor Christ the King by providing tools of liberty to free men. New York State just banned body armor. Armored Republic is suing the state of New York in federal court to resist their arrogant war against your God-given rights. Mass shootings are tragic acts of evil that are best resisted by armed citizens and brave watchmen ready to fight back. The main violent threat to human life is not individual criminals, it is tyranny. This is Armored Republic.
When tyrants take over, what's the first thing they do? Disarm. It happened in Russia, China, Germany, and most recently, Afghanistan. Why? Because disarmed people are easier to control. And over the last century and a half, American tyrants have been carrying out a slow, methodical disarmament that no one is talking about. State education. Tyrants know that education is warfare. Our rulers have a vested interest in making you totally harmless. They've got big plans and they don't want you getting in the way. Think about it. Would you rather fight an army decked out with high-powered rifles or a bunch of dinky water pistols? They know that if you can think critically, you're a threat. At New St. Andrews College, we want to graduate men and women who are dangerous. Dangerous to the world, dangerous to the principalities and powers, dangerous to spiritual wickedness in high places. Education can either arm you or disarm you. It can make you a threat or make you a useful idiot. So, where you get that education counts. Click the link to apply to New St. Andrews College today.